Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Now, I know this is something a bit different, and I normally do not ever talk about news or any kind of like media on this channel for the most part. This kind of hits a like certain nerve with me because as we all know, last year was quite the year for gaming, and not in terms of like games being released, but like games being violent, the school shootings. People would try and relate that to video games, and they were essentially just trying to regulate games and get games, like, I guess certain types of games, completely legalized to a degree. So when a story like this comes along, it really brings up that nerve, and it affects me because I'm thinking, how is that going to impact the image that video games currently have in the eyes of the government right now? So, if you are unaware, the story that I am talking about is something that actually is close to where I live, because I live in Miami, Florida, if you guys did not know. Two teenagers were, I guess, playing a video game, I'm going to guess. And they got into an argument, and one of them shot the other one. Now, he was in critical condition, and sadly he passed, which is very unfortunate. But the main thing that the media was selling this as was he killed him over a video game, because the argument had something to do with the video game. They didn't specify exactly on what the argument was. The the person who shot the other boy, he didn't specify on what the argument was. He just said essentially it was about a video game. So, nevertheless, this brings us to the whole concept of video games creating, murderers and blah, blah, blah. Because, let's be real, that's what the media was selling this as. Another excuse to put video games equal someone got killed, right? So, I'm going to start this off by saying there is I'll be linking the full article so that you can read it. It'll be in a card that I'll probably put right about now. So give that a click if you're interested, and also there will be a GoFundMe that I'll link right there, because now that the boy has passed, funeral costs, and due to the fact that they lived in a neighborhood that is not too great, so to speak, as in poverty most of the time, the funeral costs are on the way. So I will link that GoFundMe there as well as the article if you guys are interested. Now, let's get into this. The issue that I have come to realize is games do not have an effect on how someone behaves for the most part. It's the environment, okay? It's the environment that creates the person and that person's behavior. Now, as we can see by this example, the person who killed the boy, lived in a neighborhood dominated by violence. Excuse me. So when we take a look at this story, the media is essentially trying to sell this as this is another concept of, oh, he got mad over a video game, maybe he lost or something, and yada yada yada, so he killed the friend. But in my eyes, this was a prime example of the effects that the improper environment has on someone's mentality. So when we take a look at this, we can see that this person, yes, they probably got angered over something in the video game, but keep in mind that this was not specified on what exactly the argument was about. But it's likely that this person had anger issues to begin with. It is not the video game that created the means that drew this person to the conclusion to shoot this other individual. Environment and the things that they consumed from the environment, because as we all know, when we start out younger, we're sponges to our environment. We just take in everything and don't really think much. So in this case, I can really see this more of being a mental issue, and there was something mentally probably wrong with this. He didn't know how to handle anger and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I was unable to find anything about this person's history to see if they did have a bunch of mental problems, if they suffered from, anger in school and whatnot. But as I was unable to find any of that, I can only assume that this person had an anger issue. Because, after all, this person actually was the victim's friend, so to speak. So, you're obviously not going to go to someone's house if you know that they dislike you or anything. So, they were friends, and he ended up killing his friend over, some video game, but it was likely, some anger issues and something mentally wrong with this individual that led him to this conclusion. But once again, that isn't what the media is selling out. And my biggest concern is this is just another excuse for the government and lamestream media to say, oh, look at games, they're making killers, we gotta ban them, we gotta regulate them, that is essentially what the whole craze was last year. I don't know how many school shootings or mass shootings that we had back to back, but I do believe that there was probably 3 almost back to back, with weekly, and everyone was blaming the video games because that was what the person was playing. Well, what the people were playing, and they mainly played violent, quote-unquote, violent video games, and they somehow said the video games were the issue there. Now, I'm not going to really get into gun violence in this video or anything. I'm not really someone trying to force my opinions on yours or whatnot. I'm not going to talk about that in any way, shape, or form. But the biggest point that I'm trying to make in this video is this person had issues beforehand. This person who ended up taking this individual's life obviously had some kind of anger management issues, and the fact that they were somehow allowed anywhere near a gun is 9 times out of 10 either 2 things. 1, that person got a hold of that firearm illegally, or 2, they somehow had access to the firearm of some way. But considering that the individual was 16, I highly doubt that they had that. So I'm going to assume that it was illegal. They somehow got a hold of it illegal. And as we can see, due to the fact that this person had anger issues, we can see that the level of control that a firearm would give him in this situation of an argument would lead him to, want to establish his complete control in the concept of, shooting this poor individual. Now, sadly for us, we know that this isn't going to do anything for the image of video games. This is probably going to lead to, some kind of intervention, some kind of movement saying, oh, stop video games or whatever. Because, as we can see, governments are not afraid to take intervention over video games, and it can either be good or bad. It can be good in the sense that loot boxes are, being banned, or they're actively trying to be banned as of now, or they can be bad, and video games can be completely regulated. Now, unfortunately for us, the lamestream media is obviously going to, propagate this incident and say, well, it appears that video games had an effect on this individual, and that is totally the cause, not the fact that the individual had issues, anger issues, didn't know how to, disagree politely, and etc., etc. This is going to affect the image of video games once more. And it's sad because it actually hits rather close to home, since I am, once again, in Miami, Florida. But I'll suggest one thing. I know it's I'm gonna wrap this up in a second, but I also kind of feel like, due to the behavior of the entertainers who play video games nowadays, the ragers and stuff like that, and it's obviously fake most of the time. It's to get attention and whatnot and maintain an audience. But I can't help but feel like, since you start out young and you take in that environment, and as a child you don't know that rage is real, so you develop the habit of imitating what you see. I can't help but maybe something that they were watching, or due to the fact that it's so, like, I guess it's highly promoted to, like, take video games too seriously in terms of, like, raging at people and stuff, breaking things and whatnot. Perhaps that, to a degree, had something to do with it. Because, once something is promoted and, everyone's doing it, because people do not lack the fortitude to want to just handle being the outcast, even if, like, the thing that everyone's doing is stupid, because people lack the fortitude to handle, being the outcast, they just blend in. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, even if it's, like, getting violent with a person over a video game. So, I can't help but feel like perhaps it's also that thing that people have created with the whole, like, trend of raging and overreacting over video games. Perhaps this also had something to do with it. Nevertheless, I'm just going to bring this video to a close. This isn't something that I really expected to, record a video on. I don't follow media, but hearing that this has something to do with video games, I know I'm gonna at least have to stand up and defend them, because I'm not gonna let, this whole, like, image of video games get slandered the way that the mainstream media wants to do it. So I'm sorry. My condolences truly goes out to the family who has been affected. Once again, guys, there will be a GoFundMe and a article linking everything. It's rather sad to see someone's life cut off that quickly over something as petty as an argument, It's rather unfortunate. So if you guys are interested in that, please click the cards and you will see the article as well as the GoFundMe. My heart goes out to anyone who has been affected by this, and I do hope that you'll stumble on some better times. Rate the video what you think it deserves. Tell me what you want to see in the future in the comments below. And I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.